Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever in the world you may happen to be. This is Talk About Your Community. I'm your host, Todd Nielsen, with Clocktower Advisors, and I'm so glad you could find the time to be here on the stream with me today. I've got two of my favorite people in the world who are going to be on today's stream. Jenny Weigle from Jenny's own Jenny Weigle community. Jenny.community is her consultancy, and Adrian Speyer from Higher Logic Vanilla. Of course, Adrian is going to be on talking about his book today, The Accidental Community Manager. Before we get started, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that today, for many people across the world, it is Armistice Day or Remembrance Day or Veterans Day. And we started a moment late for those of you who may have been in that time zone that are observing a moment of silence for everything. So definitely thinking of all the people that gave their lives, during World War I. And wanted to acknowledge their sacrifice and the seriousness of that and the cause of freedom across the world. So, thank you for joining us, though, and for sticking with us. This show, if you haven't tuned in before, is all about communities, community building, the technologies that we use to support communities in all of its various forms. And we love questions on the stream, so it'd be great to hear you check in. If you've come in for the first time, of course, wonderful to hear from you. Please give us a shout out. But wherever you happen to be logged in from, if you're here on the live stream, please say hello and let us know where you're from. And feel free to say hello to Adrian or Jenny. We have these streams every 2 weeks. On Fridays, usually in the morning sometime in Central Time. Try to do them around 10 o'clock, but it floats a little bit. But thanks to the capable and wonderful help of my showrunner, Kalisa Mikkel, who does all the engineering and post-production editing for these. We have guests, wonderful guests, scheduled out through February of next year. So all kinds of amazing people that are lined up to speak with me and exchange their ideas and all the cool stuff that's going on. So, hey, quick shout out to Laura Zug. Thanks for joining us today. Great to see you. I think without any further ado, because we got a lot of stuff to talk about, I'm going to bring on Adrian and Jenny here. Hey, guys.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. Happy Friday.
Friday.
What an exciting day. We've been looking forward to this for a while, haven't we, Todd?
Absolutely.
My number one boosters.
Oh, I have pom-poms. I should have brought them. Oh.
I have to say, man, you have been making the rounds on a variety of shows. You're probably sick of talking about this book by this point, but
it's the accidental book tour. I honestly didn't plan it. It just shows you the generosity of the community people just to say, hey, come talk. I didn't seek, but most just were like, hey, would you like to come talk? And that's the hardest thing is, I was talking to a friend yesterday about it. It's almost hard to be so in front and out there about, because I'm sure people are sick of me by now.
Never.
Not even a chance of it. Not even a chance. You're just far too interesting a guy to have on any of these shows. I know I've tuned into a number of them. Jenny, I'm sure you have too. You always bring insights and you bring your A game energy, to these kinds of conversations. So, absolutely. You're being too modest about yourself. So,
well, it certainly encouraged me to write another book. I wasn't sure about it, but now I think I may have to.
Wait, have you shared that yet? Is this a first on this show?
I think that's an exclusive. I actually, it is an exclusive, but it's right here. Those are the notes of the beginning of the next book. I'm hoping the process I used to get this one works and it doesn't take me 4 years.
Oh, wow. We're touched to get that announcement today.
Yeah, that's an exclusive. So I'm putting it out there that people can start harassing me about, hey, so when's the next book coming? I've answered it now. So
amazing.
It's a work in progress and a completely different aspect of community building. And it's a book that has not been written as well. So
ooh. Oh.
Right.
Yeah, well, I
Right.
mean, why go where everyone else has gone? I mean, it's kind of
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be like a murder mystery slash
no.
romance,
I
kind of
thought
thing.
about that,
Is it? Yeah.
um, I mean, here's the thing, my wife is really good about keeping me grounded, and I said, I had two options of books that I could do that I was thinking about, and she's like, just stick to the community stuff. Like, don't. No one wants to read any of your others. Like, that's just focus on that. And so that was an important reminder. Um, and I think we've talked about this before privately, Todd, you and I. But I mean, these community books are not paths to being multimillionaires, right? Like I self-published. It cost me a lot of personal money to put this book out. I probably will not break even. But that's okay. That wasn't the goal of the book. I just had a lot of things to say, and I wanted to kind of get it out there as a bucket list kind of thing. And the reaction to this book, and some of the, without telling you what the next book is about, I'll just say there were a lot of people that came to me that weren't community builders that were like, this book was very helpful. And I have an idea for a book that's not for the community builder, but will be about community building.
Those are some of my favorite, because the ones that help us, and yet it's like our audience wasn't necessarily in mind, and yet
but I want to write an intentional book for that audience, and I don't think that anyone has done it yet. In the way that I want to approach it. So I know people have tried. It's just not. I have a thought on a different approach to it.
So it's not the Scandi Noir style, like Lou mentioned in the comments. No. Thank you, Lou. Thank you to everyone joining, by the way, today. Appreciate you making time. Look, you already got an exclusive announcement. This is already off to a great start. We've got a lot of questions for Adrian, and we're kind of hoping, because we have heard you on some other things talking about the book, so we were kind of hoping to tap into something that you haven't been asked yet. So hopefully this will be a little fresh and new for anyone who's joining us who has maybe seen you also on some other shows or podcasts or things.
Sure. Yeah, I'm all ready for it. I love to fly by the seat of my pants and the firing squad of questions and things. So
so you've seen this show before. Excellent. Yeah, that's great.
Well, I mean, listen, it makes it fun and exciting and different, and it makes it fun, and hopefully, like you said, we'll cover some different topics today. But anything that you want to talk about or anyone wants to ask about, I'm happy to.
Yeah, well, so I'll mention at the outset, if you have questions, if you've read Adrian's book, or if you have questions about the book, and you want to drop them into the chat, by all means, we'll do our best to try to get them onto the show here. Some quick hellos to some friends: Lou Branscombe, Ilker, our good buddy. Of course, Laura, we've already heard from. Wonderful to hear from her. Jeffrey Rowe as well. So terrific to see all you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Great to have you here. So yeah, please, we try to answer everything that shows up in the chat as it comes through, and go from there. And then I believe we're planning to promote a link. Jenny, you had done a great post this week around some of your favorite community things, and among that list of items was a really great discount on Adrian's book. So I think Khalees is going to try to get that link up into the chat. We'll make sure we have it afterwards as well, for anybody that happens to miss it. But want to make sure that people can get their hands on this highly practical book, and give everyone a chance to benefit from it. I know I popped a review up for you on Amazon this week, Adrian, while I was battling with COVID. Hopefully it made sense and I didn't have COVID brain when I wrote it. But
it was the nicest review that I have received so far. It's just such people don't understand how important Amazon reviews are. Or maybe they do, but I mean, you don't buy stuff without reviews. So I just really, really appreciate it. And that was kind of like an early Christmas gift for me to see that, because I wasn't expecting it. And it was so in depth, and in light of the Jenny as well adding me to the list, like that was a holiday surprise, and the discount I gave her is exclusively to Jenny and her followers and anyone that goes to that link, because Jenny has just been amazing. She bought, I don't know how many copies of books for customers. And I'm just so thankful for the support. And I really appreciate everyone for all the things. Because, when you're writing a book, it's a very lonely thing, right? You kind of, hey, will everyone read this? Will anyone even care? And I didn't expect to sell more than a couple of copies. So the fact that I've sold as many as I have makes me really happy. And just the value people are getting out of it makes me just so happy too.
Well, I make no bones that it deserves wide dispersal because I think, as I said in my review, this is down to earth, practical advice from somebody who's been in the trenches and had all of the hard knocks of community building from the B2B perspective. I would argue more broadly applicable than just B2B, but you certainly got to focus on that in the book. There's a lot of goodness to it. So I guess not to circle the drain here anymore, with us asking some specific questions to you. I think a really good lead off is one that just came from Lou Branscombe. And I think it's along the spirit of what we were planning to maybe delve into a little bit, which is sort of like the process of writing a thought leadership book like this and the tremendous amount of effort that goes into it. Lou asks, you said it took 4 years to write the book. How long did it take to feel like you knew enough to write such a comprehensive book? I think that's kind of a nice way to lead things off here.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So for those that may know some of the work I've done at Vanilla, now Higher Logic, we put out ebooks all the time. I've done, tons of webinars, but what ended up happening is I just would talk to a lot of folks and they were just like, ask a lot of questions. And I didn't feel like there was a book out there that I could kind of give folks that kind of covered all the things that I was looking for. Or I would say something and someone would be like, oh, I hadn't heard that or read that anywhere. And there's also just an authoritarian kind of thought of when it's in a book, it's like, well, it's in a book, so therefore it must be true. And on top of that, I was doing a lot of trainings internally on folks on community building and the frameworks and things. I've road tested this for many years, so it was just time to kind of get it down. I was encouraged by my boss to just sit down and write it and kind of get all the knowledge in there. And so it actually started kind of how this next book is starting as well. Is I write out a table of contents and give myself kind of a roadmap of where I want to go. And so the genesis of this book was, and I talk about it in the book as well, I was a marketing manager trying to stand up a community at a multi-billion-dollar company and trying to figure all the things out. And I just didn't have a resource. And this was before, Millington's books and all the other books that came later. And a lot of those books are fantastic, but I still felt like there was a room for almost like, I guess my goal was to write it as though I was next to you as a cheerleader as you go through in every step and kind of say like, hey, here's some thoughts and things that you can do. Like I didn't expect people to read the book cover to cover, although I appreciate people doing so, but I want it to be the kind of book that you're like, oh, I'm right into the situation. Let's check and go and see what's there. And I'm even referencing it because, over time you start to, you have, I know it sounds dumb, but you start to forget stuff that and having the fact that you wrote it down, it's kind of great.
Yeah.
It's kind of great to be like, oh, that's a really good idea. Who is this smart person that said, do these things?
I'm continuously struck by like the me of the past, yes, is a lot smarter than the me of the present, right?
Yeah. So, I was taking notes all the way through. And so, I think it's unfair to say it took me 4 years for the simple fact that I would say the first 2 years I was really crappy at it because I just wasn't, I was writing weekly, but very slowly. And then COVID hit and that accelerated my ability to have the commute time back to write the book. And the final year was literally just editing and getting it into a format to put out there. Writing in a Word document's easy, but getting it into a book format is the trick. And I just wanted to touch on Jeffrey's question briefly, because he's asking about the pros and cons of self-publishing with working with a publisher. I had the benefit of having a lot of great friends in the industry, like Carrie Melissa Jones and Joan O'Bacon and Richard. And I've talked to them all about self-published versus published. And really what it came down to is it's something my grandfather told me that my dad always reminds me of, and that your name is the most valuable thing that you have, in the sense that, protect your name, and your name is your brand. And I didn't want to put my name on a book that I didn't have complete control over. Maybe I'm a bit of a control freak, but I wanted to not hand over a manuscript to a publishing house and then have them tell me, oh, this isn't going to make the cut. We're editing this part out, or we need this by this day. Or I didn't want to be rushed. And honestly, surprising. I mean, I've made a lot of mistakes self-publishing, but it'll make it a lot easier for the next book. Or certainly if anyone is thinking about writing a book, I'm happy to chat with you about the things that I've learned. There's little gotchas and things that you don't know, like I didn't think of, but there's also intentional things that I did, which I'm happy I did, that publishers would probably say don't do. So
we could have a whole separate one of these sessions just talking about that and what you've learned about self-publishing. But I want to kind of jump into some of our behind the scenes questions now about things. Now, from the beginning, did you start out knowing you were going to write a book, or was it originally going to be some other piece of content like an article, or was it a book from day one?
It was a book from day one.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah. So what happened is I wrote out the table of contents. I then checked with a bunch of folks that I trusted, say, hey, did I cover everything? And then I sat down to, I made a commitment to myself. Every Friday, I was going to write 1,500 words, rain or shine, every Friday. And I wasn't doing it every day. I started off slow. And the way in my head, I was like, well, if I do 1,500, if you think about it, it's a very lengthy blog article, and so in my head, I was just like, it'll just be like, the old saying about eating an elephant, you cut it in pieces. So my thought was, I'll get to the book if I just commit. And what was good about it is I also would tell a lot of people I was writing a book, which kind of was good because it kept, I know, and it's kind of a joke, right? Because there's some people that, yeah, I'm writing a book, right? But I was writing a book, and people would ask me, how's it going? And then it would be like, yeah, I got to continue doing that. And rain or shine, even if I had nothing to say, I would write 1,500 words or as close as I could get. Trust me, there's a lot of stuff that didn't make it in this book that I just cut that wasn't good, or I was be repetitive, and I had to kind of be good about noticing those repetitive parts and cutting it out. I mean, I'll be honest, the first part of the book was a lot more biography than anyone cares to ever know about my life, that I was just like, no one gives a shit about this, so I'm just going to cut that out. But, it was just to get me in the creative mindset to write it. So the intentionality of this book was always to be very first person, personal, but something that I could write without worrying about citations and footnotes. And, I really want it to be the way I wrote it is exactly, if someone were to call me up and say, hey, chapter whatever 7, do a talk on this, it's exactly how I would have done it. So I just would, talk it out loud and write it down. So
love it.
So you've got a really nice testimonial from someone in the chat here. It's Eileen Foran just kind of said, in a recent TSAI vanilla presentation, you said something really resonated. This is about thinking about your community members, not just as an audience, but as people in the room with you, with whom you can have a conversation. It's a subtle but very effective way. I love that. Yeah, that was something that jumped out for me in the book. Like a lot of times, like I think what has been in my head from the beginning has always been, no, it's not audiences, it's members. But I like your additional distinction. It's not members, it's people that you need to be thinking about.
Well, like I said, I lightly was reminded of from Mark Zuckerberg saying that, I don't know if that's still the case, but he would tell people we build Facebook for people. But on top of that, I just started thinking about it more and more. It's, it's like, we're asking people to come and spend time in our community, but they have other things to do. They've got Netflix and childcare and other things. And I wanted people to get in a mindset of intentionality when they're building, to think about the people that they're building for, and also the stakeholders, like, especially now. I guess the book is also timely now because the MVP principle talks about internal stakeholders. And the thing is, like, there's a lot of stress and concern for your bosses and bosses about proving their worth and value and what have you. And so how can you help the community align with that to make them look good, and also bring in the people that are going to find value and uplift from the community as well? And then connecting those two is really the central thesis of the book, is to be impactful with your work, but be intentional in making sure that your stakeholders are on board, and that your community is also getting value, and that you're in their face in a good way about the value that you're bringing, because you are going to be your best cheerleader. It's just the reality. And I know the biggest challenge that community folks tend to have is they're introverts in person and extroverts online. But it's really important to advocate for yourself. And I want to be that cheerleader that kind of said, hey, you got to do this. And then the other flip side to that was also, I want to give community professionals the right to take care of themselves. Because I just found that I remember I did a blog post a long time ago talking about taking vacation as a community manager. And there were a lot of jokes about, like taking a vacation. But it's important, because otherwise you will burn out. You will not be able to take care of your community if you don't take care of yourself. And I kind of wanted to underscore some lessons that I had earlier in my career about burnout and stress and things. And that was the most impactful way I could do it, was to kind of say, look, I've been there and I get it. Like, but if at the end of the day, nothing that we're doing is life, no one's going to die from our work. I mean, you hope not anyway, for the most part. So take care of yourself so that you can take care of the ones you love, and then you'll be able to take care of your community well. Otherwise, if it doesn't lead to a problem now, it could lead to a problem later.
Yeah, I love that. I had a close friend who always said, we're not dealing with nuclear science here. We're dealing with pixels on a screen. That's our work.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it also gets to the joke I know some have about the fact that I'm a huge stamp collector. Hey, I get $100 for mentioning the stamp collecting. I think I've done every time. But for me, it's a hobby that is non-digital, in the sense that I'm not at a computer. I'm not plugged into anything. I do have a community for stamp collectors, but the majority of my stuff is really offline, in person, connecting, going to stamp shows, meeting other collectors, spending time with an album and a magnifying glass and a light and all kinds of nerdy stuff. But it's a really great break from being online and the virtual world, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that. That makes sense to me too. Having those analog hobbies is incredible for mental health. Jenny, did you have another question?
Oh, I mean, a lot.
Yeah, maybe I should talk less and give you more time for questions.
Okay, I don't even think we're gonna get through all of these, but sticking with kind of behind the scenes knowledge here, who was the first resource outside of your? Sorry, what am I trying to say? Okay, what was the first resource you tapped outside of yourself to help with your writing process? Whether that was like a tool that you purchased or somebody you went to.
So originally I wrote it in Google Docs, and then I realized that was not going to work. So I then went to Word because I recognized I did some reading about self-publishing once I had made that decision, and everyone seemed to say Word is the document that most editors want to work with. And I didn't really involve anyone till near the end, when the actual manuscript was completed. And then I freaked out because I was like, I don't know how to get this from this Word document into a book. Like it just seemed like a monumental task. And I had some misfires along the way, but I eventually found the right path to get it there. So I used a service called Reedsy, REEDSY.com. And so it's a marketplace for people that want to self-publish. And essentially you you can put out bids and all this kind of stuff. So the first attempt I made, I tried to find a project manager that could kind of guide me all the way through. But what I quickly realized is this doesn't exist. And so a lot of the people that claim, or at least on there, so a lot of the people that claimed that they did it were kind of like, well, you have to have your fully edited manuscript. And I was like, I thought you would do that, or you would help me find an editor. Like, no, we don't do that. So I then had to find an editor, and so Reedsy allows you, I think, 6 editors per thing that you go in, and I sent out a request for quote to 6, and 5 of them rejected editing the book. The 6th one was a gentleman by the name of Gregory Newton Brown, fantastic fellow, works at Random House and HarperCollins and he does like this stuff on the as a side hustle, I guess, because he likes to work with new writers. And he was really excited about community. He's like, look, I'm not a community builder, but I'm really excited to read it. And it was kind of a good thing for me, because he was able to kind of point out the places where I went to, where I had blindness in terms of not having explaining certain things. So he's like, this doesn't make sense, or can you explain that? And he was really good, worked with me, and he was like, truthfully, the first outside resource. Although in terms of community people, I had two friends of mine, Carrie Melissa Jones and Nicole Devilites, who read the initial manuscript to kind of keep me honest in terms of making sure I didn't have any holes. So, one of the chapters added was about private communities, because originally I didn't have anything about private communities. And she's like, I'm glad you talk about SEO and all these public communities, but there's going to be a whole bunch of B2B folks that probably don't. And I'm like, you're right. And I have a lot of stuff to say about it, so I should add a chapter. So I did. And then I also, as time was also close before I got to Gregory. So another thing I'd realized, and things that you don't realize so much, but over the 4 years, the question about DEIB, I was like, I'm putting out a book about community, and I really should have a chapter about this. And I'll be honest, as a white male, I was kind of like, okay, I could get myself in some trouble here. I may have some blind spots. So I connected with a whole bunch of trusted individuals in my network to review that chapter, make sure that I was not missing the boat or saying the wrong thing, or just making sure that it was as helpful as I could be, but also not trying to present myself as an expert. More it's just the things that I've learned over time, and questions to ask when I'm building a community, and and how to seek out and have those conversations, and questions, and also some gotchas for people. So those chapters were added later in the process, but other than that, yeah, it was Gregory and me against the world, and he formatted it into the format that we had, and I was able to get it into that next step.
Kudos to him, and I think a nice testament, to again, another great example of how this book is comprehensive in a lot of ways. That there's so many different use cases you cover through the chapters. It's just a very effective handbook, and very, very practical for anybody to sit down and thumb through. I know you had said at one point, I don't see this as something that I would read through, from beginning to end, or that you need to read through from beginning to end. You can kind of dip in and get what you need, where you need it. But I thought it was a great end-to-end read, and there was compelling narrative there. You took us on a journey. There was a logical progression from like conceptualizing community to a lot of the more granular kinds of questions around building it out, content, SEO, as you had mentioned, DEI, all of those topics get covered. Even I loved you had a chapter about what to do if you inherit a community that's mostly dead. I thought that was great.
It sounds, and I think the thing that's interesting to me has been, I purposely focused on B2B communities, but as some have noticed, there was an opportunity. People can get B2C or nonprofit information in there. Certainly the focus was on B2B, because I'll be honest, that's the majority of where my personal experience came from. And it's not that I haven't worked on B2C communities. I've worked with some huge brands on their B2C communities, like household names. And I was also very careful about that too. Like, I know one person was like, "Oh, you should name all the brands you've worked with." And I was like, I kind of don't feel that I didn't really want to do that. I mean, people know just go look at who Higher Logic and Vanilla have had as customers. And I've had a hand in a lot of them. So you can kind of figure it out in that way. And I just felt a bit icky because I'm not a consultant, right? It's a public consultant in a way that made sense for me to kind of publicly say, "Oh yeah, I've worked with blah, 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 blah." But I mean, you can kind of figure it out.
I've got a non-behind the scenes question I want to throw at you, Adrian, actually. There's a lot of book authors that I follow that as part of their book launch efforts, I see them starting up a community. So as a community builder yourself, did you ever think to create a community in conjunction with the book?
No.
And why? Why? What's behind that? Because I'm a little fascinated since you are a community builder, but no community. So tell us the thinking behind that.
Because I know the community's hard, and I know that it takes effort and time, and I'm not necessarily someone that believes in a cult of personality, in the sense, like, I'm not Oprah that I need to create a community around myself for the book. But what I did do, and you can check it out at adrianspeyer.com. I do have a newsletter that I started just to kind of keep people in the loop of things around the book and projects that I'm working on. And certainly as the next book makes its way through, if people are interested, that they'll know about. But I wasn't really looking at, creating like adrianspeyer.com, which is my website, adrianspeyer.com/forum, and having like a space where people could chat. I feel I'm really accessible anyways. Like, most people that know me in the community space, I think my Calendly link is so out there. Like, so many people have it. Like, I'm happy to meet one-on-one or chat on LinkedIn, or I think I'm pretty accessible in a lot of the community type events and things. So I didn't really see the necessity to then now create another space. I don't know. I think I'm not that egotistical. Maybe that's the wrong thing, but it didn't seem the right thing for me to do.
Well, and I think anybody that knows you even a little bit online, Adrian, knows that you're a super accessible guy, always happy to talk about these topics. And I think it's one of the things that makes you such a credible resource for the book as well. So I had a question that is also related to the book, and not the meta process of creating the book. And I mentioned this in the review that I did for you as well. I really like. Page 125, you've got sort of this community. I don't know if you would term it a community life cycle or a community maturity model. I could kind of apply both to it to some degree, but I really like it. And there are a lot of models out there. Some of it corresponds to the Irberry academic online community life cycle from 2009 that Richard picked up for Fever Bee. There's some elements to it. But what I really liked was how you decoupled the metrics from that model. And I wonder if you could maybe just kind of speak to that for a minute, because I think it's super important that you did.
Yeah. So the problem that I had with all the other models that were out there, and it wasn't that I have a major respect for all the models that were out there, but the biggest challenge I had, and you have to understand the scope of, I'm dealing with hundreds of community managers and projects and things. People were always obsessed about benchmarking, but benchmarking in a metric way. And I was just like, how do you benchmark? There was there was a community for cancer that want to know how their benchmark was against other communities. And it's kind of like, well, how do I even answer that? Like time to response. I mean, it's kind of like a weird thing. So it got me down a rabbit hole of, okay, well, I can't just say there isn't any. So I had to kind of think about what are the thoughts that I could do on that. And so what I decided was to look at what are the behaviors that in each segment are people doing, and that will tell you where you are. so that you can see, for example, if your community team is answering all the questions versus is the community answering all the questions and you're kind of watching, versus there's tons of questions and nothing is happening. Well, you're definitely in decline, right? And that's kind of what I wanted to do. And then also kind of guidepost people where if this is where you are and you want to get to the next step in the life cycle, these are the graduating tasks that need to occur, or the things that you will see happening that will let you know where you are. Now, it's not perfect that you're going to sit there with a check mark and make sure that you hit all of them, but it gives you at least some guideposts to be like, okay, this is kind of where my community's at.
Well, and I thought that was particularly powerful, and I saw it as an innovation, with what you were providing there, because it gives more agency to the community manager. Because it's always sort of like, well, what can I do? Like, well, I mean, you can maybe have an effect on your metrics, based on what you're doing. We're always trying to do those things, but this was nice because I liked how you turned them as graduating tasks. I mean, nobody needs to take them as hard and fast rules, like it's check the box kind of stuff. But I think it really helps a community manager who is maybe coming at this for the first time to know, what should I be doing to make sure that I've got every chance for success here? And I really like how you flipped the script on that and how that worked. I think that's an important contribution to our space.
Thank you.
And thank you for doing that. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I mean, it's also selfish for myself in the sense that I wanted to have it out there to be like, go look at this. Like, stop asking me about what your benchmark should be and go check out this thing. And I had shared it a couple of years ago, but I felt like by putting it in a book, it would get a bit more breadth and visibility.
It's brilliant because I get asked that all the time as a consultant. What should I be benchmarking from the, when I launch? How will I know, am I successful or not? Who should I be, comparing myself to? And
that's the other thing too. So there were a lot of, I think the people that have been doing community a long time, especially the consultants, probably were, in my thought when I was writing, I knew there were some passages where people were going to be like, yes, things like just the questions that I know that we all get, but I didn't find, there wasn't a book saying what I needed it to say. For example, the question we all get, which is, how many moderators do I need? And I answered in the book, 42. No,
right.
It's not 42. But it's like I wanted something.
That's a much broader answer, Adrian. It's a more universal application, I think.
Well, so for those that don't know, it's the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and 42 is the answer to all the things. But here's an example. Gregory Newton Brown didn't know. He didn't get the joke. He was like, I don't understand why you said 42. And I was like,
goodness.
You're right. Not everyone's going to get it. So let me explain where it comes from. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and that it's the universal number and blah, blah, blah. It's a hat tip for science fiction nerds. And, there's little things like that in there too. Or for example, like I love SEO as much as the next person, but I needed something to kind of just say caution, because there's a lot of SEO consultants that approach communities the way that they approach a website or a blog, and community is not the same thing.
Right.
And the difference is, a blog is you have an author that works for the company and they're going to think about the meta description and meta titles and things. And we on a platform side, we'll get tons of people asking us, hey, can we have like this feature that allows us to modify it? And it's kind of weird because when you're looking at a community that's hundreds of thousands of posts, like no one's going in there and modifying that stuff. So it's like, and you shouldn't either, because it's in the language of your audience and community. And therefore, if you're correcting their language, you're kind of doing a disservice for your company and for your community, because they're not going to be able to find it because you've now marketized their speech. Like the only time you should be going in there and modifying a title is if it's help. Like that's not helpful to anyone. But other than that, like it should be let alone or have a light touch, if anything.
Yeah, totally agreed. Jenny?
Shall we get into the next round or keep going with us behind the scenes, Todd? What do you think?
I don't know. Do you have one more question for behind the scenes, and then we'll enter
we have a
lightning
lot
round?
More. So, okay, maybe I'll just pick one.
Or I'll shorten my answers so I can lightning round.
Okay. Now that it's published, is there a topic you wish you had included or gone more in depth on?
Oh, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Man, no, I think I mean, maybe it's a stupid answer, but I really felt I covered everything I wanted to. There's nothing. I mean, maybe I'll have.
Well, and I applaud you, Adrian, because as going through this and thinking out my questions, when I wrote that down, I went back and I looked at my notes and I was like, is there anything I think he missed? And I couldn't think of anything. Todd, is there anything you think he didn't cover? Because it's so thorough. It is so thorough.
Maybe
No.
Web3. I maybe could have talked about Web3, but
Oh, no, please don't.
But it's not. But
Web3.
it's B2. I mean, that's the thing too. I was hyper focused on B2B, so there are things I cut out because as I was doing the review process, I'm like, well, this doesn't really apply to B2B. And if I'm asking, I try. I mean, some stuff did slip through. On reflection, I'm like, that doesn't really apply. But the lessons are still relevant. But it was really focused on B2B.
Yeah, I don't know that Web3 would have played in the book. Now that I think about it, because I mean, yeah, maybe a last chapter about sort of like looking forward to the future of communities or something like that. But
Second edition.
Second edition. There you go, man. An afterword or something. But I think, I mean, the really practical bent of the book and helping me get started, and if I'm a new community professional, like what's the stuff I need to know? What are the checklists? What are the what's a span? What's a cargo? All of the stuff that is going to help me just be productive. I feel like getting people excited about Web3 or other pieces of that would have muddied the waters a little bit.
Yeah, and it's too early.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
We had a nice question. I'll just do one more here from Lou. What would be the one thing you want people to take away from reading the book?
Oh, that's a good one too. Well, I guess it starts with the sort of the central one of the tenets of the book is that we all make mistakes, and even though I've given you a lot of tools and frameworks, like try and see what works for you. Maybe some of the stuff in there doesn't work for you, but don't, just because it's written or just because I wrote it doesn't mean I'm an expert either. Like every community is very different, and just try things. Like that's really the thing that I learned in community building is every community is so unique and different, and you just got to try things. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't work, modify or cancel. And
yeah.
And then the other thing is the community of community builders is a very friendly and open space. And so if you admire someone's work, don't be shy to reach out to them on LinkedIn and say, hey, do you have 10 minutes for a coffee chat? And I'd love to learn from you. Because I don't think I can't think of any community builder that I know that would say no to that ask.
Yeah, nor can I. Yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah, I loved. I would agree. I mean, I think that one of the overarching messages for me was, go and break stuff. Don't be afraid to make those mistakes. Or to use Jenny's phrase, go do epic shit. This is
epic community shit.
Epic community shit. Pardon me. Yes, exactly. Have you trademarked that yet, Jenny? That's pretty awesome. So.
I guess I need to look into it. I think just become the official tagline of Jenny.community. I hope that people are still on. I'm reading that there might be a tech issue. But
if you could see us, please give us a thumbs up or a nod in the comments. Hopefully we're still broadcasting live. It looks like we're fine from our end. I'm not seeing any problems.
Seems okay for me.
Shall we enter the lightning round?
Every great internet show has a lightning round, of course.
I feel like I need a sound effect to go over this. Like, lightning round, lightning.
All right. We should do it.
All right. Question number 1. Adrian, do you have a favorite shirt or sweatshirt that you're wearing while writing?
Oh, yes.
And what does it look like? I know you're probably going to get it right now, but tell us.
It's a knitted sweater vest that has a big moose on the back and says Canada. Super comfortable, like to wear it around the fire. And it's just super comfy.
Please post that on awesome. Instagram or something after this. Let us know. This was the writing shirt right here.
It's a really comfy thing to wear.
I'll take the next
Nice.
one. What physical space did you do most of your writing in?
In the basement, in the at a coffee table.
Mm, okay.
Nice. Question number 3. What time of day was best for writing for you?
It was before work, usually from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m.
Oh, 5 a.m. You're committed. Love it. What chapter did you enjoy writing the most?
Oh, that's a great question. The one that welcome to the club.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was because I really wanted to like, hey, we're in this together. And I just, after I read it, I was like, I
It's a
was
great
so proud
chapter.
of that
Yeah.
chapter. Yeah.
That was a great chapter. I really like that. And the corollary to that, what chapter was the biggest pain in the tuchus to write?
Oh, man, there's so many.
Yes. Figured this wouldn't be an easy answer for you because there's a lot of chapters.
Yeah, I gotta, let me. I know it's a lightning round, but I need to look at the chat. So I won't say that it was a pain, but the one that took me the longest was the DEIB one because I wanted to get it right.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, I wanted to get it right.
And I'm glad to hear you put more time and effort into that. Awesome. Excellent. What was your beverage of choice when writing?
It's always water.
Always water. Like spring water, alkaline water. Come on, what kind of water are you telling us here, Adrian?
So what I do,
People want details.
I have a Brita filter. I don't do bottled water because I'm trying to, not destroy the environment. And it's in my handy mug.
The Archie.
Is that a favorite mug?
Love it. Love it.
Was that your go-to mug as well?
That is my go-to mug. It just makes me smile.
Just made us smile too.
That's amazing. I love it. Who was the first person to see or read any portion of your book?
Oh, it's my wife. Yeah. It's my wife for sure.
That makes sense. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And she's the one that said to me, they don't need to know this. I cut out a lot of the front part of the bio because I was like, I'm not that famous that people care.
Oh, we got 2 more questions in this round. Would you say you were mostly energized or mostly exhausted from the entire experience?
Oh, that's a good question. Energized. Yeah, I think energized. And then
That's
exhausted.
coming through. I see it. Yeah.
Nice. And final question. What was your writing kryptonite? What was most likely to interrupt or stall you out from writing?
Someone booking a meeting that I had to prepare for before work. So
meetings.
Yeah. I mean, even though I was writing, so I would write between 5 to 7 a.m. But if I had like a 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. meeting and I had to prepare for it, it was kind of like, it's tough to.
Yeah.
Somehow I always made it through though. I don't know. Weirdly.
That concludes the lightning round. Insert sound effects.
Well, this has been delightful, man. I always love getting on these streams with both of you guys. I would just kind of again say, check out Jenny's post from this week around her favorite community things, which includes the discount link to Adrian's book. If you haven't gotten it, be sure to get a copy or buy a copy for your boss or buy a copy for a friend. Always a great opportunity. Highly practical book. You won't be sorry for having done it. And Adrian, we're going to look forward to your next book, man. We got to.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me just say, yes, you got the exclusive that another one is coming, but when it will arrive, only God knows.
Excellent. Well, my friends, thank you so much for being on with me. The next talk about your community, due to the U.S. Thanksgiving holiday, we're not going to be meeting in 2 weeks. But the next event is going to be Friday, December the 2nd at 10 a.m. Central Time. I'm going to have on Marta Rocamora Gonzalez talking about architecting meaningful community experiences. So be sure to sign up for that. She is absolutely delightful to talk to. And we're going to have some conversations about being very literal about this, the architecture of community experiences. Like, what does that mean? What does it look like, both in current and maybe in future thinking terms, as well as in live event terms, because she manages some co-working spaces. So I think some things to think about there. In the meantime, why don't we go out with, if anybody wants to get in touch with either one of you guys, what are some of the best ways to reach you or to learn more about you?
For me, just go to jenny.community and you can find contact form and my social media handles there. So look forward to connecting.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way would be adrianspeyer.com. I have a link to the newsletter. Follow me on LinkedIn or connect on LinkedIn if you want to get in touch. That's probably the easiest now that Twitter is a dumpster fire.
Yeah, and as for me, it's certainly LinkedIn, or go to clocktoweradvisors.com. And now on Mastodon at Todd Nilsson. Adrian, I think I see you're out there too, man. Right?
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah.
Yep.
It's an interesting experiment in community as well. So we'll see how that goes.
It definitely is. It definitely is. And for those of you who stuck with us through the whole stream, thank you so much for doing so. Thank you for your great comments and ideas and interactions. Really love you for it. Take some time for yourself this weekend. Take a deep breath. Have some fun. Be with family. Be good to each other. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with the next show. And in the meantime, Adrian and Jenny, I wish you guys both well. We'll see you again here real soon back on the show.
Yeah, everyone. Do epic community shit. Yes!
Woo!